As an artist, I draw my inspiration from nature. You'll find that a lot of my work is speaking to the fact that as humans we are a part of nature, and that forms the kind of backbone to everything I do. In the last few years, I've really narrowed down my focus to the idea that, we're part of the environment and we're part of this ecosystem. And if we don't see ourselves as part of that, it removes that, that responsibility to take care of our planet. I find that photography is the best medium for me in which to communicate those really fundamental values. So when I'm thinking about what I'm going to do in a shoot, I generally come to the shoot with a conceptual idea of what I want to do. But when I'm looking at a scene in front of me, often I'm drawing on influences that I've taken from like the pre-Raphaelite painters, where there's this illuminated figure within nature. And so I'm kind of using my lighting and to try and enhance that illuminated figure in the scene. And it also creates a really natural vignette around the photograph. So the large format files allow me to print big, which is basically the end goal for a lot of my work. I try and find areas where there might be a particular sort of spray of colour or an amazing sort of sense of contrast between colour and tone. And I'm aware that the figure, being me in this series, I have quite light skin, so I understand the way my skin will then interact with the landscape I'm putting myself in. So I've been shooting on medium format for a long time now, and one of the real challenges with that gear is its weight. So having found the GFX100S, it means that I'm able to actually carry the camera. It's so much lighter, which means I can carry it without the sort of strain that it was putting on me. And it means that now I'm able to also kind of move around in a way that I wasn't. I really had to plant my previous cameras on a tripod. As well as having the in-body image stabilization, it allows me to capture sharp and detailed images completely handheld. So I began making my new series, which is called Jinks in the Hydrangeas, in March 2020, and it came a few months after I just lived through the experience of the bushfires coming very close to my home. Unbeknownst to me, only a few months later, the pandemic would hit, and suddenly this idea of home, I live out on 6 acres in the countryside, and suddenly somewhere that was really terrifying became somewhere safe again. And so that kind of was the beginning of when I started the series, that those were the things that were actually happening in the world. But what I also noticed was that when I was out in the landscape photographing myself, it was actually quite a funny process, and I was sort of able to look at the shoot from outside of being in it. And what I found was that it brought a bit of humour into it, and I started seeing the kind of beauty of my figure in the landscape and the kind of way that I could immerse myself in the landscape. And so the photographic series evolved from something where early on there was a sense of anxiety and me sort of being chased by something, to a place where I was sort of nestled in the landscape and really trying to integrate my figure into the landscape, into something beautiful, into something that kind of spoke of hope rather than of fear. Having the interval setting has been really helpful because it means that I can work out how many photographs I want the camera to take at one go, work out how long I want between each of those photographs, which means that as I'm sort of moving around in the landscape in front of the camera, I'm able to reposition myself and have an idea of how long that period is going to go for. Photographic series I've been working on, I've been using elements that would ordinarily be quite stressful to use with a camera. So I've got like this colorful dust coming in, I've got water coming in, and I've got all of these elements, and having the GFX100S and its ability to withstand that kind of elemental madness, it means that I've been able to keep shooting when ordinarily I'd have to stop. The speed of the autofocus on a large sensor camera means I can capture images that I never would have before. So when I first started this series, there was a definite sense of sort of anxiety present in the photographs and in the way I was putting my figure in the landscape. But over the year and a half that I worked on it, there was a transition, and there was a place where the work kind of evolved into something where there was a sense of, a sense of comfort in putting my figure in the landscape and nestling my body in the foliage. And so I feel like the series evolved from something that had a kind of like darker undertone into something like a transformation into something kind of beautiful and freeing. So during this shoot, the sun was coming in and out, which meant that there were a number of images that were underexposed. But because of the dynamic range in the GFX100S, I'm able to pull out the detail and maintain that quality. So for me, the final point of the entire process of making the photograph is the print. It may be that some images work more than others, but to be able to have the capacity to make a really big, beautiful, high quality print. Having the GFX100S and the ability to go more than full frame means that I can have these prints that are, they hold up under size, and that's like the ultimate goal for me.